Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.
Hello there, this is Elora, and I'm a Prequel Trilogy kid.
And this is Dave, and I'm an original Trilogy kid. And you're listening to What Does Star Wars Mean to You? The show where we talk to all kinds of fans of the franchise, from industry insiders to indie artists, from obsessive mythologists to mega collectors, all for one goal: to take the hate out of the debate by focusing on one fan at a time to find out, what does Star Wars mean to you? Plus, it's just fun to chat Star Wars.
We think so. Welcome to our episode between episodes, where Dave and I deep dive our favorite parts of our interviews with our guests. We discuss what's interesting to us in the world of Star Wars for this week. And we usually like to kick off with the Holocron recap, which I think we have a sound effect for.
Yes, we do. Here it is.
So we talked to Joey from Outpost 77. We had a lot of fun learning about the community that he's built there.
Yeah, Outpost 77 is this, what would you, like a cosplay community.
Mm-hmm.
It's a space where he built kind of an outer rim small town. It has...
They call it a galaxy experience.
Yeah. You know, I guess if you want to do a real not apples to apples comparison, but if you want to compare it to something, it's almost like a Batu, you know?
Yeah.
It's a place where people can go, they can dress as their favorite Star Wars characters, and they can LARP or cosplay, and it just feels like a Star Wars area. And so it seems super cool, and it was really fun having him on talking about it, because one of the things, look, I'm always charmed by people who accomplish things, and I don't mean like super big things, but like, hey, I have a day-to-day job, but I've also created this. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's super impressive. And he was, the fact that he was able to like buy a piece of land, and then he and his partner, whose real life name is Darth, started building on there, and then organizing to get people to come out there. That includes people and vendors, and organizing all that. It just... His
droid builders, like all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yes. And his ability to produce this world to play in, I think, is just really impressive.
Yeah. It started out, I think, as a COVID passion project. I've been following him for a few years and watching it develop. And now I think we're going to try and go next year.
Yes. We're going to head down with the old tape recorder in hand.
Yeah.
Tape recorder? My God, sometimes I say things.
You are an original Trilogy kid.
That's very true.
What was your favorite moment from our talk with Joey?
One of my favorite moments, and this is a weird one, I know, but it was when I felt like the Force was truly with him, because he's a big hardware guy. He likes the ships, the technology, and every time we kind of left it up to chance, like we rolled in 5 with the Force, what is your favorite? And then we have like 6 options. We roll a 1d6, and it was, what's your favorite spaceship? The whole interview just kind of felt like that his love for it is so kind of strong. He was manipulating time and space around him. I know it's crazy, but that's, or his aura, or whatever you want, however, manifesting, however you want to say it. I felt like he was living it. I wish I had. Well,
and I think, I know, right? He kind of said it too. I mean, he was like, just go out and create things, like go out and build. Yeah. And I love seeing people who like are manifesting their own destiny in that way, and like the universe or karma or whatever you want to call it is like rewarding that attitude almost. I think it's a lot of like, you get out of life what you put into it. And that was kind of, I mean, my favorite moment from our chat wasn't necessarily like a moment, but I really love how much he spoke on community, how much, how important it was to build that community, the celebration of Star Wars, the celebration of people who enjoy LARPing or cosplay or, just pretending, that like childlike sense of play that like I say with the highest of esteem, because I think that too often adults let that go and we don't play imagination and we don't indulge in the things that make us happy, because at the end of the day we are all just like kids inside. So yeah, I think I don't know. I've been actually like thinking a lot about our conversation this week and the importance of having people around you that you connect with, who share your passions, who want to meet you where you are and do the dorky thing, essentially.
Yes.
Like
get
I think
cringe
it's so
together.
important. Yeah.
Oh my God. We should start a new trend called like getting cringe, and you intentionally do things that are cringy just to get it out of your system. Get over the cringe. I hate the word cringe. Sorry.
No, I mean, but I think that's kind of what I'm circling here. It's that, I think for a long time there was a whole show designed around the premise of like, nerdom, like Big Bang Theory being kind of like other than, but like it's so much more common now because people are owning it more and it's become more of the pop culture. But like that point of community, we were, my husband's 35th birthday was this last weekend. And I said, well, yeah. And I said, what do you want to do today? And he was like, I want to go over to the gaming pub and I want to play Disney villains. Have a beer. And so we did. And I was thinking a lot about our conversation with Joey because I was looking around this gaming pub at all of these different like tables of friends, families, like people who were just embracing all different types of gameplay, all different types of nerd spectrum, right?
Yes.
And I loved all of it. Like everyone was having so much fun and everyone had found their people. And it was the first time I'd ever been in a place like that. So I don't know. I think own the things that make you happy no matter what the internet might tell you, I guess is what I took away from that. Yeah.
I love it. Should we hear what Star Wars means to him?
Yes. I just drone on for so long. Please cut half of that down.
Yeah, it's more the community, I would say. And I like that. I like that analogy of like it's. I really like that where it's like a potluck. I brought the place. Everybody's just coming out and showing they're bringing their thing to share, and it's a place where everybody's sharing what means to them. To the place, and we get to see all that, and we all get to share with it, and it's kind of great. It's sharing. It's community. I mean, it's the human condition. We gotta be around other people to function. We're at our best. We're not when we're not hermits, but or Kenobi hermits, but it's just. I think it's just bringing everybody together. It's like everybody I've met, has been really cool. I wouldn't say it's like perfect, but it's pretty darn close. Like everybody's been. It's like when you see other people put effort into their cosplays or their kit or the games or their droids or whatever, and you're like, that is sick, man. Like everything, I love everything about it. It's where you just get to see their love and passion just kind of brought to life.
Joey said something really fun. He said that his uncle painted the teeth of the Sarlacc.
Yes.
Did I say that right? The Sarlacc, yeah.
Yes.
And he was in the paint department on Empire.
Yeah.
And Jedi.
We were talking to him. I'm surprised I didn't call that out as one of my favorite moments.
I know. He was like, I'd go over to my cousin's house and there'd just be like old VHS tapes with like behind the scenes footage as though it was like part of just their family film and scrapbook. And it was just part of the family. And like, what a life.
I know. But it does show that how he got into... building these sets, basically.
Yeah. We thought it'd be fun to talk a little bit about practical effects in Star Wars. And I think it's interesting because we talked about this on the show a couple times recently with various guests, like the difference between the CGI effects, especially when it comes to like droids or alien creatures in the Star Wars universe compared to when you have humans behind them and kind of how you can sense that difference. So I feel like we've been building to this for a while, kind of like beneath the surface. And I think anyone listening that's a major fan of Star Wars knows this, but for those who don't, George Lucas, when he was, starting the production of Star Wars in the 70s, he was told that everything he wanted to do was impossible. He couldn't film spaceships flying through space. There couldn't be lasers and explosions and alien worlds, and it wasn't going to happen. And again, very much like Joey, he just was like, well, fine, bet, I'll do it myself. So 1975, Industrial Light and Magic was born in a warehouse in Van Nuys, California, staffed by engineers and model builders and artists whose job was to invent Star Wars.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty
whole
great
new
job.
Filmmaking.
Well, and eventually led to, absolutely. I mean, God, the films and the television productions that they support today are... Just go to the website. The list is endless.
Yeah, it's just about everything. I mean, I think it's the gold standard for special effects.
But I think their most famous next project kind of, post Star Wars was the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
That's right. And that's where they first came up with really the CGI. And I believe Spielberg even said that if they didn't get the dinosaurs right, he would not have made the movie.
Yeah, because how could you, right?
Yeah.
Although I will say this, I have done the Universal Studios lot tour more times than I would like to admit, because we lived in LA for a while, and every time someone came to visit, they were like, we want to go to Universal Studios and go to the lot tour. And so I could probably recite that tour at this point. And I always would pause and think when we get to the Jaws set that they have there with the animatronic shark and the explosion. And it's all super impressive.
Yes.
But it looks animatronic. And that's what's so cool about this stuff is in person, it looks very cool. It's very cool. I don't want to take away from the craft, but something translates different when you put it on film.
Absolutely.
It has a much more realism effect that you don't get in the moment. It looks like an animatronic shark, but on camera, it looks like a real shark.
It's really crazy. You look at the guns from Star Wars in the original trilogy, and you hold them, you look at them in real life, and you're like, why do I even think this is something that was real? When in the movie with the sound effects, the actors holding them, the lasers coming out of them, they become very real.
Yeah. So Industrial Light and Magic pioneered what they call motion control photography. So it's computer-controlled camera rigs that they call the Dijkstraflex. Is that how you would say that?
Yeah, Dijkstraflex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, named after the VFX supervisor that they had, John Dijkstra. This allowed for repeatable, complex camera movements over the miniatures that they created. And they used something in the production world called kit bashing, which was repurposing old parts onto new things to basically create the ships that we know today, the Millennium Falcon, all the Star Destroyers. It gave them a really realistic and mechanical complexity, even though they were rather large, but still miniatures that they would film over using the Dijkstraflex.
It was like taking Legos, a bunch of different Lego kits and putting them all together and just making their own Legos out of them.
For the Death Star's trench run, they built a 60-foot-long miniature set, which is huge, that the camera could race through to simulate the rebel pilot's point of view in the film. I don't think I knew that fact. I knew it was a miniature that they had filmed over. I don't think I realized that it was a 60-foot-long trench that they had developed and very intricately, because every single side of that trench was going to be seen on camera as it traveled through.
Another thing that, and this is much smaller, but the opening crawl was painted on glass, and they moved the camera down it in order to make it look like it was going up and back like that.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So everything was done practically.
Well, do you want to talk about the AT-AT walkers and Phil Tippett's work to animate those? Because I know that's some of your favorite practical effects in Star Wars.
Yeah, well, it's they brought in Phil Tippett to animate the AT-AT walkers on Hoth using a technique that incorporates motion blur for realism. It's called Go Motion. And I don't know how long it took him, but it was like weeks of work to construct that battle. And it's one of my favorite scenes from all of Star Wars. It's one of my favorite battles, partially because I think I like the idea that it was on land, on a surface of a planet, that it was in snow, and that it just looked like, the spaceships in outer space look real, but it's hard for me to relate to that because I've never been to space. But the AT-ATs, I've seen tundras. I've been on big plains when it was snowy.
Yeah.
And I can feel the AT-AT looming over me when I'm in those situations. And so that, I thought that effect is amazing. And then they have all kinds of different sizes of AT-ATs depending on the shot.
Yeah.
And they go like really small to really big. And the same with the Millennium Falcon. They had like different size, from life size all the way down to like a quarter on the back of a Star Destroyer. Just sorry, I rambled on, but
no, I think you're circling on kind of like our top like conversation note, which is
yes,
the human touches that gave the galaxy it's lived in and like very textured feel. That it doesn't feel fake. It somehow it feels relatable. It feels real.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, do you want to talk about how these have differed so much from the digital CGI that they kind of explored with the prequel trilogy? Like, I mean, you were an original trilogy kid. So you, in real time, went from practical effects to the more CGI effects. Like, what was your fan reaction to that?
My fan reaction was I didn't like it very much. And a lot
you
of
were
it...
not in the minority.
A lot of it is... Look, I look back on it now and I see the good in it. And the other thing I've learned is that there were a lot of practical effects in the prequel trilogy. But the marketing, the story at the time was not about the practical effects. It was about the digital effects and all the things they did to create those digital effects. And I have to say, 20 years later, 25 years later, that those effects still hold up to a lot of digital effects today. You can kind of see especially in Phantom Menace, like, what is it called? Revenge of the Sith feels like it could have come out yesterday for how good all those effects still look.
Yeah.
There were things in Phantom Menace that bothered me, like when the Gungans were fighting the droid army in the big field, and it just felt a little not cartoon, it felt animated, where there was this big fake field with a lot of computer animation on it, as opposed to this like tense trench warfare of Hoth. And instead of two like 16th century armies just moving forward towards each other and
I was just thinking that, like, on horseback, like, there's something that gets lost. Like, there's almost an urgency and, like, a suspense you lose. I don't think I realized it until just right now, like, having this conversation. When I turn on Star Wars a lot in the background as I'm, like, moving about my day. Like, it's my fold laundry. It's like, I think, like, a lot of people listening to a Star Wars podcast can relate. I always get so much more gripped and pulled into action sequences that occur where I know now through this conversation are a lot more practical effects. It's a lot of stuff in the original trilogy. It's some of the stuff in the sequel trilogy. I don't necessarily stop what I'm doing and like get that like, locked in like moment with some of the like the grand battle you're talking about in Phantom. Because I think there's something that you can't connect with because it almost feels like computer game. Like it doesn't feel, the stakes don't feel as high, even though it looks as grand as it does. There's something about, that like having the men on horseback in the trenches with the shield walls, that kind of feeling that changes the game.
There's a thing called the uncanny valley, which is a robot will something will look human to a person until a certain degree of realism. So like Wall-E the robot looks human to us, and we can accept that with his like big eyes, kind of an area for a mouth. Like we can finish out his emotions and face just by those few cues. But you get closer to reality, say like Tarkin from Rogue One, then you really notice how it's not human, because it's just small little details that make you go, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I feel like CGI is a little bit like that uncanny valley. Like if you CGI a car, I may not notice, but you CGI a whole scene, and all of a sudden I'm like picking out things that are bumping me.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the difficulty with CGI. And especially now when you're talking about fierce deadlines, overworked people, all those kind of things where like something like Marvel's, oh God, I know I'm doing a lot of different movies right now.
No, it's okay. We're talking about effects.
Yeah. Where Marvel's Endgame looks fantastic because they had like all the money in the world to make that happen. But then something like Captain America, Brave New World doesn't look quite as good because they didn't throw all the money at it, and they're still trying to.
Use that example.
Yeah, I feel guilty for using that example.
It's a hot take, but I agree with it, so I back it up. Yeah. So they kind of got this feedback, and they transitioned to bringing more practical effects back to the sequel trilogy.
Well, I also think maybe marketing also, because you listening to those marketing people, like you listen to the PR and everything, and they're like, and this time we used models, and we used a lot, and we didn't use any CGI, and you're like, I think that's a lie. I think you use CGI, and it's okay.
It's okay.
But
yeah,
sorry, that's my own.
No, but it's true. Like the Jakku village in the sequel trilogy is all a practical set, and it shows. It's so like it feels so much more real. I think everybody kind of knows that there's kind of unspoken element.
Yes,
but they've really kind of, I think, kicked it up a notch with The Mandalorian and with Grogu.
With the volume, which gives that like...
It's a curved LED wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it builds the environments around them, which is really cool. And Baby Yoda... I just said that to make some people mad. No, Grogu...
is that a line we have to defend?
No,
calling him Baby Yoda? For 2 years, he was called Baby Yoda.
I know, but I get mad. I give my husband shit whenever he calls him Baby Yoda. I'm like, he is Grogu.
Okay. And you will not name him against that 900-year-old
because he's
idiot.
Not Baby Yoda.
Yeah, he is not Baby Yoda. That's right. You are correct.
But he was built, and he's puppeteered by a team from Industrial Light and Magic and their effects artists. And he has over 15 points of movement just in the face alone, which is so cool.
It really is. And it, like, I'm sure they kind of boost it with CGI, like maybe around the mouth or something. But still, it's so impressive. And what's so great about a practical effect, I mean, they all have their ups and downs. And what I love what they're doing now, like with all of these things, is they're fitting the effect for what they want to achieve. So that... like, if it's supposed to be intentionally kind of gritty, maybe they go real, like the Jakku village or Andor. Or if they're going for like a big space kind of opera field, they can have the volume. And it's like that episode of the Book of Boba Fett where Mandalorian took over and brought Grogu, Baby Yoda, to Luke Skywalker. Or I guess he went to pick him up from Luke Skywalker. But there was that space station.
Yeah, it's this hybrid innovation. Like, I feel like for a long time, and this is not unique to Star Wars. In fact, I think Star Wars did it the least. But there was a lot of, I think, oh, wow, look at all this new technology. We're going to throw it into all these projects and, just look how cool what we're doing. And now it's so much more intentional. It's more like, well, what is this storyline or this set or this character like need to evoke for the audience. It's a little, we don't need to show off the tech as much anymore because we know it's there and we know that it's incredible and we know that they're constantly innovating on it. No, the volume is a really cool like mix of both worlds of that practical effect meets what we really do need to tell a lot of these stories today if we have it, and that is the computer generation. Yeah. I already kind of asked you what your favorite practical effects were. Did you want to talk about Yoda at all?
Yeah, because that's one of my favorite practical. When I like really, when you posed this question to me, I was like, I don't know. But there are so many. I really like the small Millennium Falcon on the back of the of the Star Destroyer.
So cool.
And I love those moments because I feel like they're real. And one of the aspects of that is that Yoda feels so much more like a character in the movie as opposed to a prop or a puppet or something. Just and in Empire Strikes Back, the way Mark Hamill acts and reacts to Yoda brings him to life. Like that's a special effect right there. And then, of course, Frank Oz and his puppetry team bringing Yoda to life. Just one of the best character effects in all of the movies.
Yeah, I agree with you. It adds something. I mean, we've talked at length on our show about Anthony Daniels as C-3PO and how, you know, it's something different than I mean, I can go back to and rewatch and see the difference between today's computer R2 versus so like you can see it a little bit. It's there. There's like we talked a lot about that on our interview with Charles Stewart Ross and about mask work and all of that. So go listen to that if you haven't. It's a really good conversation. But my favorite, I think, has to be the amount of detail that went into crafting the miniatures for the ships, like the X-Wings, the Star Destroyers, the TIE Fighters. Because those are the things that I had hanging from my ceiling as a kid. Like that's what kind of I think brought me into the world of Star Wars. I had Anakin's little like yellow cruiser from episode 2, and I would put him and Obi in it, and they'd fly around my like cardboard city, and
So you're very much like Joey from Outpost 77. You're into the hardware.
I loved the idea of flying on X-Wing. And just to know that, you know, that those were painstakingly crafted, like, miniatures.
Yes.
That every dot of paint, every element, like, was intentional and meant something and knew that it would be, you know, blown up and amplified 10x on screen to create the world that we know and love today. That's probably my favorite. It might seem very simple because they do, like, a lot of really cool rad shit, but but I love the miniatures, and I would love the opportunity if I ever got to see them. Hopefully, when George opens his museum, some of them will be on display.
Yes,
that'd be very cool.
Yeah, I'd like that. You know that famous picture of him on Skywalker Ranch amongst all the props and models and stuff. Man, I would love all of that to be on display.
I would love to have a tour of Industrial Light and Magic. I don't know if that's something you can even do. I've had a huge love of them personally, too, not only because of the movies that they've, obviously Star Wars, but like the movies that they've made and, you know, real and that we love. But it was Industrial Light and Magic that collaborated with Louis Sahoyas on his documentary, The Cove, to create realistic-looking rocks that helped them capture atrocities happening to whales in Japan.
Really?
Like in secret. Yeah, they were. And brought like worldwide attention to an issue that I care very much about. And so I don't know, I just think that they're really cool people doing really cool shit.
That is awesome. It's like we make the special effects that even nature can't tell is not real.
That even humans in real life can't tell. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Wow.
So let's pivot to How We Star Wars this week.
For How I Star Wars this week was I watched the season 6 arc of Clone Wars. It was episodes 11, 12, and 13. And it's the episodes where Yoda where Qui-Gon Jinn kind of comes back to Yoda and says, hey, there's a way of living on within the living force and go on this journey to find out how. And through it, Yoda like sees a little bit of the future and the dark side winning. He comes across Darth Bane as a kind of a force ghost or a hallucination. It is a really trippy episode arc of the Clone Wars, very filled with force lore, which can be a lot of fun. It's like the Mortis arc from earlier, I want to say season 4, where it's just all about the force, the weird ways in which it works, and really, I don't know what it's like being on acid, but watching these 3 episodes is kind of like that. It's really trippy. I highly recommend it. Like, put expectations on the shelf and just be like, I'm going to go on a weird force ride.
Okay.
It's good.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do that and report back. Maybe how I Star Wars next week. I Star Wars this week by watching Return of the Jedi while on my phone in the backyard while I hammered together and assembled 3 new beehives.
Oh, wow.
Because my apiary doubled. For those who don't follow me on Instagram, I have the most confusing brand in the world. I am Beekeeper meets Star Wars podcaster. And that's how I Star Wars this week. And honestly, it's what inspired me to suggest that we talk about Industrial Light and Magic after our conversation with Joey, because I was realizing just how much of the practical effects, especially in Jedi, just make that movie so magical, even down to Jabba being an actual puppet. Like you can absolutely tell the difference. And obviously the Ewoks are, near and dear to my heart.
When you're putting it together, like doing something with Return of the Jedi are there any moments or scenes where you're like, I'm going to pause what I'm doing and just watch this? Or when they're getting thrown in the pit and there's that whole sequence. Anything that has an Ewok on screen, I'm probably pausing and watching. I love the sequence where 3PO is like, it's against my programming to impersonate a deity. They're like, are you kidding me? And how much that's so emblematic of 3PO's character in the sequels as well, where he's like, well, I can't translate this. I don't care that we're all about to die. Like, I couldn't possibly. It forbids it. That's always super fun. But I also wanted to give a shout out to, and I've called it out on this pod too, but since we were talking about practical effects, I wanted to dig through this and and we probably will in the future, an entire episode on a couple elements of this book. But the Star Wars Blueprints by J.W. Rinsler, it has all of the practical effects blueprints in it. Wow. It's a ginormous coffee table book. And if it's something you're into, it's very cool. It's mostly the sets, but it does have some of the ships and the droids and stuff in it as well, which is very cool. That seems like a great reference book.
Yeah. We'll have to bring it into some future episodes. It's a little daunting.
So that's what Star Wars means to us this week. Next week, we have Dr. Chris Kimshall coming in to talk about his book, The History and Politics of Star Wars, Death Stars and Democracy. Yeah. And it's a chat and how fascism is both in Star Wars and around us in the real world all the time.
And I know it sounds very depressing, but it's actually a very uplifting conversation.
Yes. Thank you.
Like, you're listening to this and you're like, all I have to do is turn on the news. Why would I tune into that? That sounds depressing as hell. Promise you, Chris makes history so much fun. And we love having him on the show. And he actually has a lot of really great, I think, insight and like perspective on the world right now. So, yeah.
Even though it's a deep discussion, it is also very light.
Yes, yeah. Well, we try to keep it light here.
Yeah. And so if you want to get in on the conversation, you can do so at Star Wars Mean to You. That's at Star Wars Mean, the number 2 and the letter U. Please like and follow us. And if you're enjoying the show, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps helps the show find an audience.
Yeah, it helps us get seen. Yeah.
And don't we all just want to be seen?
I think that's kind of what we've talked about today, is the importance of being seen.
Yeah, I think so. I think somehow that bubbled up from like our talk about special effects.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, Dave, may the force be with you.
May the force be with you. Should we hear what Star Wars means to him?
Yes. I just droned on for so long. Please cut half of that down.
I'm going to cut most of it out. In fact, it'll be lucky if people even think you're in this episode.
I even showed up to work today.
Yeah, it's just going to be me monologuing. But I'll put silence where you were talking so that people can actually join in. It'll be like a interactive episode about how Star Wars represents the politics and wars of real life, and how fascism in both Star Wars and how fascism is around and how fascism is fuck you, fascism. I can't even say the word.
You got it.
Well,
you have a lot of editing to do, but I do think that that's a decent episode.
Yeah.